Hey, good morning, everybody. Sorry, I've got a mouthful of donuts. You know, once a cop, always a cop. As the old saying goes, my watch may be over, my time in uniform may be over, but my watch never ends. So I had to get that donut down. I hope everybody's doing all right today. You know, it's really a good day in the neighborhood. The Longhorns won last week. They're going to win today. I think there's a team called the Aggies that even won last weekend. And then, of course, Cameron won, and so did Temple. So everybody's doing well. You know, I thought about what to talk about today, and I looked around. You know, we've gone through here in our country over the last couple of weeks some, I call it some very very divisive attitudes. You know, when you watch television, especially when you watch the confirmation hearings, you hear every side, you hear all this. If you watch the upcoming elections for O'Rourke and for Cruz, you see the different sides. You see the slamming part. They don't tell us what they're going to do. They tell us what their friend is not going to do or their opponent's not going to do.
Amen to that.
Well, you know, that gets old for me, especially when you start talking about things that law enforcement doesn't do or does do. You know, I have a little soft spot after 45 years now in the law enforcement business for law enforcement officers. And when you start talking about their decisions and how they make things decided, basically that are not good, you know, I really get frustrated. You know, I don't know of any cops, and I'm sure there are some out there, but in my 45-year existence and carried a badge and a gun, I don't know a single cop that has made a decision based upon the color of the skin of the person they arrested. You know, maybe that does happen in some areas, some locales, but I know that the areas that I've worked in, that did not happen. And I've worked in a larger agency, a small agency, a medium-sized agency. Matter of fact, if I ever had an officer who worked for me that did do that based upon the color of someone's skin, I think that I'd be the first to drum them out of the bugle corps, as you would say. So, with that being said, when you go to the polls next week, or a week after next, whenever that may be, do me a favor. Make sure you read up on what the platforms are of the people that are running. Make sure you understand how they look toward law enforcement, what their ideas about law enforcement are. And I could get on here and I could tell you who I think you ought to vote for, but that's not my decision. Everyone has to make that decision themselves. But be informed, know who you're voting for. Because if you vote for the wrong person, not only is it going to affect the number of people coming into our country, how our country is treated, and how our people who do the job to try to protect you are treated. So use your own judgment and your own ideas. What I do want to talk about today mainly, though, is how to protect your city. For years, one of the cornerstones of catching criminals has been the reporting of suspicious activity individuals to the police. You know, over the years, citizens have stopped countless crimes and saved lives by becoming actively involved in protecting their communities by just being an involved witness when crime strikes the neighborhood. I've often said, and I'll say it again, that the level of response from your police department and the efficiency by which they operate is directly tied to community involvement. They don't, no law enforcement agency thrives if they're not supported by their community. As the additional eyes and ears of law enforcement, citizens can help to reduce crime, improve safety, and increase the quality of neighborhood life by knowing what to report and how to report it. That's the key. Know when to report and how to report it. Now more than ever, folks, citizens are needed to come forward and provide valuable information. You know, we can only put so many police officers on the street. We can only put so many people work in your neighborhood. And when you call down to a police department and you ask for extra patrols in your neighborhood, those extra patrols then take patrols away from another neighborhood, because you may only have one or two officers working your particular city that night. If you're in a larger city such as Temple or Waco or Killeen, you may have 15 officers working a city. But when you have 15 officers in a city that size, very rarely do they have any downtime at all. They're running call to call to call. So folks, it's important that you do know what your job is. Remember, don't be shy. Your job is simply to report, and law enforcement will take your call seriously and check out the situation. I did that this morning coming in, to be honest with you. I was coming down Loop 363 in Temple driving to Cameron. I came around a corner, and there was a line of cars at least a mile long stopped on the inside lane of the service road to Loop 363. A blind intersection coming around the corner. I slammed on my brakes, moved over, and was able to do it. What was happening is there's a hospital there in Temple that's giving away free flu shots today. The backup was over a mile. Was it a danger? Absolutely. There was going to be a wreck at some point. So I picked up my phone, didn't call 911, but did call the non-emergency number of the Temple Police Department and explained to them that they need to get somebody out there either for traffic control or put some directional arrows up because somebody was going to get hurt. So folks, there's always something you can do to help a community. What you see and report may be invaluable and may save lives. Sometimes it can be confusing about what to report and when to report it. So what exactly is suspicious activity? Suspicious activities can refer to incidents, events, individuals, or circumstances that seem unusual or out of place. You know what they are in your neighborhood. Some common examples of this are real simple. What if you have a stranger that's loitering in your neighborhood? Understand there's no more loitering laws in Texas or anywhere in the United States. That was unconstitutional. But if you see someone that is doing it, that doesn't mean that you can't get somebody out there to at least check them out and see what they're doing. You know, someone peering into cars or windows is another example. A high volume of traffic going to and coming from a home on a daily basis. What do you think that means? Well, if you see different cars pull up, somebody walks out, and somebody drives off, you've got a drug transaction going on. Things you might want to think about reporting to your local law enforcement officer. Open or broken doors and windows at a closed business or an unoccupied home. You see that? Call your police department. Call your law enforcement agency. If you see someone tampering, and this is really good because this has happened, I know here in Cameron, if you see someone tampering with electrical, gas, or sewer systems without an identifiable company logo on their shirts, you probably got somebody that's either trying to figure a way to go around the water system, around the electrical system, or something of that nature. Doesn't take a lot to do. All you got to do is pick up the telephone. If they're not a problem, the police department will check them out, tell them exactly why they were contacted, and they'll be on their very merry way. But you got to take up the phone. You got to call. Remember, a quick and adequate description that's accurate of vehicles, events, and persons can make all the difference in apprehending somebody who may potentially cause problems in your neighborhood. Any type of activity or circumstance that seems unusual should be reported, folks. There are 4 general categories to consider when determining what to report, and this is really important, so I hope you listen to this. As an officer, you should make note and constantly be scanning for situations in these 4 categories. This is what we taught police officers. Citizens should generally report the following. Number 1, they should report suspicious activities, people, and vehicles. You know what is not right for your neighborhood. If it feels wrong, call in. You don't necessarily have to call 911. Every police agency has a non-emergency number. If you want to call 911, that won't be frowned upon, especially in a situation where you think something's going on in your neighborhood. If you see illegal activities, and I know as well as I'm sitting here behind this microphone today, that each of you, and sometimes have seen illegal activities take place in your neighborhood. Or if you see unusual events or incidents, maybe you see somebody loading, maybe you've got a neighbor out of town, and you see somebody loading up TVs, you see them loading up household goods. It might be the cousins that have come down to help out, but it also could be somebody that's not planning, or it could be cousins that's not supposed to be there. Or if you see something that's dangerous, like I did this morning, and I'm going to go one step further, we have to be the protector of our young children. If you see children that are out and about at the wrong time, if you see youngsters, and I'm talking about the little ones that are out with no adult around, that's unusual activity. That's a dangerous situation, all combined. Pick up the phone and report it. By reporting these types of suspicious activities, citizens can help the police make their communities safer and more secure. It also is going to reduce the violence in your neighborhood. And the most important thing it's going to do, it's going to minimize victimization. It's going to help you reduce crime and violence and improve the overall quality of life. And that's what we're striving for here. overall quality of life. You know, in a previous section of the radio show today, they talked about the Constitution and what the Constitution stood for. The Constitution basically was built so that we all have rights, but those rights mean that we can all get along at some point. You know, Rodney King said, after he was beat by the Los Angeles Police Department, one of the statements that is always talked about is he said, "Can't we all just get along?" Well, folks, if you remember my show from last week, there's going to be a time when we're not all going to get along. Trust me. We're going to have differences. We're going to have ideas. Every human being is going to have a difference of some kind. You know, maybe your next door neighbor's dog. It may be maybe somebody's working on a car, revving it up in the middle of the night. Or it might be just that your neighbor's kids drive too fast when they come home. Folks, we have to learn to get along. I'll be the first to admit that. But you also have to understand there's a fine line, a very fine line between getting along and being taken advantage of. So what you do is you need to take the time, if you feel that your rights are being violated, if you can't be in peace in your neighborhood, pick up the phone, call law enforcement, let them make the determination. When you report suspicious crime, provide, please, as much detail as you can. Start with the basics and get more specific. One reliable method to constantly make good suspect description is to begin at their head and work down. We want to know their hair, their face, the type of shirt they're wearing. Are they 4'5" or are they 7'8"? Are they 100 pounds or 450 pounds? It's kind of like why I try to be as honest as I can. Most of you who do know me know that if someone would pick me out in the lineup, there's not much chance that I can get away with that. Being 6'7" and weighing, well, I'm not going to talk about what I weigh, and used to have red hair and now white hair that's as white as a ghost. You know, I wouldn't be able to hide very easy. People see me and would know me. Start getting a habit of looking at people. You know, don't look at them for whether they're good looking or not. Look at them for whether they're what they actually look like, what color pants they have on, what color shirt they have on. All of that is important. You know, and I've heard so many times, well, they all just look alike. No, everybody doesn't just look alike. Everybody has some kind of disclaimer, something that's different about them. You know, as a police officer, it's very frustrating when we hear after the fact that a person saw something that appeared unusual but didn't want to bother the police department with something that is trivial or maybe nothing. Then to kind of find out a crime occurred in the neighborhood. Folks, taking a few moments to report a crime may save yourself or your neighbors the agony of becoming a victim. So what should you do if you hear or see something suspicious? I'm going to say it again. Call 911. Now, some of the 911 operators may say, don't tell them that. Well, folks, they get paid to answer that telephone. If you see something that's not right, if you feel something's not right, call 911. How many of you have been laying in bed at night, almost ready to doze off, and you hear a thud or a loud noise, or you hear a gunshot somewhere, and you think, it's my imagination. It could be your imagination, but it also could be someone that is either shooting in your neighborhood, someone that's doing something wrong in your neighborhood. So take the time to call that number and report it. You know, and please take a while to look over your things. Make sure that you've got everything documented in your home. Make sure you have your serial numbers written down, especially, and I'm gonna hit real hard on this, especially if you have firearms in the house. Everybody has a phone nowadays. Take a picture of that firearm. Take a photograph of the serial number of that. Everything you have needs to be documented. Because if you do lose it, or if you do get it stolen, you need to be able to turn that into the police department. To me, there is absolutely nothing worse than having a firearm stolen from you, used in the commission of a crime, possibly a murder somewhere, knowing that you could have turned that in. It could have been put on the National Crime Prevention Information Crime database, and maybe that gun could have been taken off the street. To give you a quick example of how that happened, about 17 years ago, I had gone from Temple PD to Morgan's Point PD as police chief. At that time, I had a 9mm Ruger pistol. It was my old pistol at Temple that we were allowed to buy. But I wanted a .45 Glock, you know, bigger, better things. So I went to a gun shop over in Copper's Cove and traded that for a 45 Glock. Well, about a year later, I get a knock on the door from the ATF. The ATF wants to know if I robbed a bank up in Dallas, Texas. And to my surprise, to my chagrin, I like to swallow whatever I was chewing. What had happened, my gun that was used, that I had traded in, was then sold to an individual from the Killeen area, and then that gun was used in the commission of a crime in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now you think, well, a pawn shop or a gun shop should have used the right paperwork. Well, apparently they didn't do any paperwork at all. So the last registered owner to that gun with paperwork came back to me. Folks, take pictures, document, record what you do with your guns, with your TVs, with your important ideas, especially your jewelry. Now, I could go on, but the last thing I'm going to say today is trust your instincts. If you see or hear something out of the ordinary and it crosses your mind, even for an instant, call the police. Call immediately. Don't wait till tomorrow. Give a chance for your police department to come out and look what's going over. One immediate call to the police could stop a crime act. It could protect your neighborhood, your citizens, and your loved ones. So, folks, I hope you had a great day, a great week this week. Be safe. Be careful. Cold weather is coming in Monday. It's going to be a wonderful day with that cold weather blowing through here. And we can start wearing our long sleeve shirts, and it can start feeling like a true fall season. Have a great one, everybody, and take care.